allegiance to the flag of our great nation. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Nickel. I appreciate all members present here, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity. At this time, I will call public comments forward to discuss your items addressing tonight's agenda item. Mr. Hartley, followed by Treasurer Ortiz, followed by Harry Hatch, and Mr. Ojeda. Mr. Hartley, welcome.
Hello, Mayor, City Council, Mike Hartley, 3066 Parkside Drive. Here we are again at a special meeting called by the Mayor for the sole purpose of what? I have no idea. Since there is no backup to this meeting, I can only assume the Mayor and his Chief of Staff are the only ones privy to that information, and maybe a few council members who always vote his way. Again, I can only assume, since the meeting is called Budget Study Workshop, you plan on discussing the budget for 2018-2019. If it's for that year, again, I can only assume, and it's to criticize the city manager for the mistakes she made on her projections and her forecasting for the city budget. If this is what this meeting is about, then I will throw my 2 cents in. Before I retired, I was an area operations manager with 4 plants located in 3 different states. I have put together plenty of budgets in my lifetime. And I can tell you, a budget is a guess, an educated guess, a prediction. You rely on past trends of revenues and expenditures to help you predict the future. It would be no easy task for our city manager or any city manager to put together a budget for a city that has its roads and buildings falling apart, vacant properties, homeless population out of control, rising crime. What do you put in the budget for the police department and code enforcement? It boggles my mind. Now, when you think you have it all figured out and you approve the final numbers a couple months later, the revenues that you budgeted for do not materialize because more people moved out of the city than moved in. More businesses closed than what was foreseen. Less people, less businesses, less taxes to collect. Bottom line, mistakes are going to be made and things are going to be missed when putting a budget together because it is a prediction. And the only way you'll hit all your targets and goals is to be damn lucky or you have a crystal ball. And good luck finding one of those. Thank you.
Next speaker is Treasurer Ortiz, followed by Harry Hatch. Mr. Ortiz, welcome.
Council and Mayor, I'm really shocked that there is even a meeting being held tonight with no backup. And if my recollection serves, Madam City Manager, are you not directly in charge of the budget? I find it very odd that the mayor would call a special meeting to discuss the budget that is controlled directly by you, by your staff. There is no oversight in this city. There is no budgetary process. This is why it is dangerous for a mayor or a council to be able to control an agenda that doesn't have to go through the city manager or her staff. I will not be able to sit here and watch the 6 of you continue on a meeting for which you have no documentation, you have no background material to make an informed decision. And Ms. Ibarra, how many times have you sat here and chastised the city manager for providing you information less than 24 hours in advance of a meeting? I want you to continue to question why the mayor is allowed to ask for a meeting 24 hours in advance without giving you any documentation. Teddy, if you even want to discuss this agenda without having any documentation, I ask you to ask the mayor and his chief of staff why they have not provided you documentation today. Why 24 hours? What is the emergency for a budget workshop? Why was this not agendized for next week at a regular council meeting when the majority of people were meant to be here? Mr. Muldahill, I asked you that question. Ms. Richard, Mayor Pro Tem, I asked you that question. Henry Nickel, I asked you that question. Fred Shorett, you are all accountable to this city. We do not fail ward by ward. We do not succeed ward by ward. We succeed as a city together. And what you are doing is dangerous. This is what the city of Bell did. They allowed themselves not to have checks and balances to meet their own agenda. Nothing but their own fiscal pockets were filled at the expense of their own residents. And you will not be allowed to do this in the city of San Bernardino. Not today and not tomorrow, not in the next 10 years, because you bankrupt us once and you will not bankrupt us again. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Harry Hatch, followed by Mr. Ojeda. Welcome, Mr. Hatch.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm not going to go into rhetoric because I know you're going to be talking about stuff anyway. I'm going to talk about next year's budget. Next year's budget is something you're going to have to look at. What revenues do you have coming in? Do not think about marijuana taxes. Do not think about any other taxes that are not supported by any substantial tax codes. They're not there. They're cash and carry. They're something you cannot count on to support your budget. You have problems. You want to go into policing, community policing. Good idea. How are you going to fund it? Are you going to take positions that are in the department now and make them better, higher paying? That's not putting people on the bricks. What we need is policemen on the street, the way it used to be. When I started working downtown foot patrol on graveyard, shaking doors. How long has it been since we've seen a cop out shaking doors? We haven't got them to do that. They can't do that because there's too many calls for service. And the calls for service are important. They need to go. But you need to provide a service first. Team policing, community policing is a good process, but it has to be funded properly. Don't use your money unwisely. Think about what you're going to do. Mr. Sanchez, Ms. Ibarra, you're asking good questions. Mr. Nichols, you're asking good questions. All of you are asking good questions. What are you doing wrong? You're not cooperating. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Luis Ojeda. Mr. Ojeda, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just wondering who's dying, because this is an emergency meeting, right? And I asked around and what it's all about, and it seemed that nobody knew. And everybody talks about bankruptcy. Everybody talks about we don't have funds. And I was wondering if everybody here is working for free tonight. No, right? So I think, Mr. Mayor, it's very inconsiderate of you to do this to us, because I just found out last minute, and I don't appreciate this. I don't, because I want to be involved. I want to help. But if I don't have, advance notice, it's going to be a meeting, I'm not able to prepare well to ask questions or to make a comment. So if we care about how much we're spending, well, we need to start here. I mean, I'm sure that in, the next agenda, we could talk about this and not to spend money, because like I say, I don't think that none of you guys are working for free. And frankly, right now, what I see is that we're spending money for no reason. And we're not talking about the most important issues. Yes, okay, I heard, I don't know if that's what we're going to be talking about, what happened fiscal year 2018, 2019. But even though it's important, I don't think this is the more critical things that we have right now. I've been telling you guys over and over again, crime. We got potholes, we have homeless, we have trash. And it seems like everybody agrees with me, but at the same time, that should be an emergency meeting. How are we going to deal with crime? Because as far as I know, there's people dying. How many murders do we have in the last 3 months? 4, 5, 6? And we're always in the newspapers, and it's not for the good things. It's always something negative. And always, petty fights. And every time I see the newspaper, I haven't seen any positive. And I would appreciate you guys to start focusing on what is important to all of us, not just to some of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ojeda. That concludes our public comments, and we appreciate our public comments. Thank you. Earlier this month, our interim finance director presented on March 6, 2019,
Mayor, through the
presented
chair,
her
please. Through the
mid-year
chair,
budget
please.
report.
Mayor,
the
through the
report
chair.
described what was
Mayor,
budgeted
through
for
the chair, I'm not going to relent. Mayor, I'm not going to relent.
Mr. Shorett.
I believe this is an inappropriate meeting, ill-advised, and I'd like to hear from our city attorney on how we're having this. Everyone that has been up here tonight has said exactly the right thing, and that is that we are sitting here absolutely with no backup whatsoever. And I know what's going on here. It's you and your chief of staff, and you're going to do something to make our city manager look bad. That's the intent of this meeting, and anyone that doesn't believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. So I'd like to hear from the city manager, from the city attorney as to whether or not this is actually a legally posted and an appropriately posted meeting.
Earlier this month, our
And I move for adjournment. Are we being televised?
Yes, we are, sir.
Do you want me to respond to that, Mayor?
No, I'm going to continue with my comment. Thank you, Mr. Shorett. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Appreciate it. Earlier this month, on March 6 of
We're being
2019,
hijacked, people, by these
our
two people.
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order, sir.
I know I am, and you bet I am.
You done?
Oh, no, you're going to give me some more time?
Go
I
ahead.
am not done, no.
Go ahead,
This
sir.
is an outrage, and I would like to hear on this meeting. Where's the backup? What is the purpose of this meeting? What are you doing here hijacking this council? You are not the king. Under the new charter, you have no real authority other than a couple of tiebreakers, and we've been doing that for 3 months. We've been doing that for 3 months. We've had 6 meetings in 3 months, regular meetings, and we've had 5, maybe 6 emergency meetings. And this is the letter of the law might allow you to have to call a meeting, a special meeting, but the spirit of the law is for an emergency. And this is no more an emergency than the man in the moon, and we all know it, and we know what's going on here.
Earlier this month, on March 6, 2019,
Point of inquiry, if I may.
Mr. Nickel.
Yeah, I just, I have received concern from the public. A lot of people don't know what this is about. I received a special meeting agenda that literally had one line on it. I really don't know what this is about. I am concerned that there may be a notice issue here. I do want to make sure that we aren't in violation of the Brown Act at present, given the fact there was very little notice, very little background, very little documentation provided. I would like to get the city attorney's opinion on that.
Sure. Mr. City Attorney, what say you?
I was actually contacted by members of the public asking me what the meeting was about. I had to tell them that I didn't know what the meeting was about. That made me believe that there was probably going to be some concern about the agendizing and whether or not it was proper to inform the public. As we all know, the Brown Act requires open and public meetings. When the Brown Act was enacted in the early 50s, there were a lot of meetings were taking place behind closed doors without the public knowing what was going on. The Brown Act requires, of course, that meetings be open and public. Public means that the public has a right to participate in meetings, in my opinion. And public participation is enhanced by the Brown Act requirement of a meaningful agenda. In other words, you want public to have an opportunity to participate. That opportunity is enhanced when they have a meaningful agenda, that is, they are informed. They have a sufficient information about what the meeting is about, what's going to be discussed, so that they can make a decision whether or not this is something that they want to participate in. They want to be heard, they have an interest, they have concerns, whatever the case may be. That's what the Brown Act does. It allows the public to participate, to be a part of a meeting. We've heard from constituents here today, Luis Ojeda, for example, saying that he has no idea what this meeting is. I've heard from other constituents, many. I've heard from council people asking me what this meeting is about. I had to tell them, I don't know. Your city attorney doesn't know. Most of the staff in San Bernardino City, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, do not know what this meeting is about. That, in my opinion, is not consistent with the Brown Act. The Brown Act calls for open. We hear a lot of talk about transparency, and that's a good thing. This council and this mayor have talked significantly about wanting to have open and transparent meetings, be open to the public, be receptive to the public's participation and input. That's all well and good. An agenda that simply has 3 words, budget study workshop, in my mind, without any backup to qualify that, in my mind, is not a meaningful agenda sufficient to advise the public what this discussion is going to be about so that they can participate. So that's
Mr.
my,
City Attorney, I do have some questions for you.
Sure.
Was the meeting in compliance with the Brown Act on noticing? Yes or no?
No.
Ms. City Clerk, did you agendize in protocol of the Brown Act requirements to notice the public?
I published the agenda on Monday, which was more than 24 hours before the special meeting as required by the Brown Act.
Very good.
With the
If you're asking for the
information-
timing,
Mr. City
I
Attorney,
would
just
say
a minute.
yes. If you're asking for the
Mr.
substance,
City
I
Attorney,
would
you're
say
out of
no.
order, sir. You will wait until I call on you. Ms. City Clerk, please continue.
King John.
On Friday, I heard from your chief of staff that you wanted to call this meeting, and I asked him at that time if there would be any backup, and he said no, that you would provide a PowerPoint
As to the
at this
provisions
meeting.
of noticing, Ms. City Clerk, are they in compliance to your attestation?
Yes, this was posted more than 24 hours prior to
Very good.
the meeting.
I think the meeting will continue. I am not in violation of the Brown Act.
I move for adjournment.
Mr.
This is a non.
Mr. Shorett,
This is
you're out of order, sir.
inappropriately. I move for adjournment.
If I may, let me read this.
I'll second that.
And
Call for the question.
we will continue. Earlier this month, on March 6th, Mr. Shorett,
I think there's a motion.
I think there's a motion and a second. Call for
the chair does not recognize it.
Well, the chair doesn't have a,
Well, then the chair is going to have to carry on this meeting without.
Okay, then goodbye, Mr. Shorett. If you don't want to participate in the future of this city, that's fine.
I don't want to work under you, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
well,
I'll tell
that's-
you what, but I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay
You're
right
out of
here.
order, sir.
I'm not out of
You're
order.
out of
You're
order.
out of order.
Okay, well-
You are out of order, and you have been for 9 years.
Mr. Shorett,
You've been on the wrong side of every issue in this
Okay.
city, and now you think you're king.
earlier this month,
the charter says
our
the mayor should
interim
have no
finance
administrative
director
powers.
presented her mid-year budget report to this community
So can
and
the
to
mayor-
this
I move to
council.
adjourn.
Can the mayor call
The
a meeting?
report described what was
He has no
budgeted
Yes, he
for the
can.
2018
Yes, he can.
2019 fiscal year, and whether our projections are proving to be accurate.
There it is. There it is. He's going after the city manager right now for a mistake. That's the whole purpose of
As
this
our
meeting.
finance
That's
director
the whole
reported
purpose
in
of
her
this meeting.
presentations, some of the numbers in her forecast presented to the public on March 6, 2019, are off big time.
Not really big time.
No, this is
Hardly. Hardly.
Mr. Mulvihill, you're out of order, sir.
You're out of
Mr.
order.
Shorett.
You are.
Mr. Mayor. You are out of order, and you have been.
Okay.
And
As
you
you-
and Mr. Saley think you're running this city nowadays, and it's not going to
Mr.
happen.
Charette, you are out of order.
I am
sir.
not out of order.
You have no administrative
As you
powers.
can
no
imagine,
administrative power.
You have no
I was
administrative
troubled
powers.
None.
by what I learned
Zero.
from this report. There is false numbers presented in the budget report
is out and
as
out.
Those are
presented
estimates.
by March.
Those are estimates. You don't know what business is. You have no idea what business is. I think Mr. Hartley
Mr.
nailed it.
Mulvihill, would you like to be addressed, or would you like the floor?
I think I'm already talking.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then I will continue.
No, the powers and duties of the
I
mayor.
called for tonight's budget workshop so that the council and I can better understand and comprehend the state of our finances here in our community. That's what you pay
You should
this
recognize
council
that yourself.
and the mayor to do. So I called for tonight's budget workshop so that the council and I can better understand the state of our finances and get some answers on what went wrong. We need to also start discussing how we move forward from here. The mayor's office has been combing through the numbers in the mid-year budget report, and we will present our findings to the full council. After this presentation, we will have some questions for our finance director and our city manager. I see that Ms. Conrad is not here. The city manager, why is the finance director not here?
Andrea, read your email.
Mayor, members of the council, this afternoon, I did advise each of you that these city staff had been advised that they were not required to attend this evening's meeting. As the council is aware, Rita is working in an interim capacity with limited hours. CalPERS has very strict restrictions on the number of hours that retirees can work. We've scheduled her time so we can complete 3 major tasks. We want to complete the recruitment for the new finance director, complete the budget analysis and preparation for meetings with the city council on the upcoming fiscal year, and address the financial audit. The finance department provided a thorough analysis of the mid-year budget review. We did that not only on the March 6th meeting, where we went through it, and I do have copies available. I think Councilmember Ibarra requested backup, and I told her I would provide, I have plenty of copies for each one of you. We also discussed that at the March 20th meeting during the CIP presentation. I have copies of that report for you, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you have. The departments are currently in the process of preparing the projections for the 1920 budget. Per the charter, we are required to provide to you a budget for your consideration in advance of the fiscal year, and I will be prepared to present those numbers to you in late April, early May, as we typically do. I did receive a response to my email from the mayor's office directed to the interim director. Rita, the mayor's office expects the finance director to be in attendance at tonight's budget workshop. We look forward to seeing you at tonight's meeting unless the city manager has ordered you not to attend. A directive not to attend should be in writing. Andrea, if Rita is not there tonight, you can expect us to issue a press release on the matter. This is not a game, and so I do have copies of that for you as well.
Thank you, Ms.
There you go, people. That's what's going on in the mayor's office.
At this time,
it's a battle.
I
it's
ask
a war.
that my chief of staff will present the report from the mayor's office, and the findings that we would like to present to the council.
I have a concern. I have no information in front of me. I think it's appropriate that whatever is being presented, we have a report that we can adequately prepare for tonight's discussion. We do not have any information right now.
Councilman Nickel,
you are not the finance director.
This is all I got.
This is
it.
We've got one line.
If you would let us speak.
No, we're not going to let you. You have no authority here, sir.
Let me speak. The staff routinely prepares PowerPoints that are not previewed or given to you ahead of time.
You
I
have
will assure
no
you that you will
authority
hear
here.
I'll tell you what.
new
If
tonight.
this were an item that was brought to me by the city manager, I would rightfully
You're
condemn
over your
her for
authority.
not bringing adequate information. I have nothing. This is it.
If you just let us speak, you will
No,
hear.
I don't want to speak. I have to prepare. That's the whole purpose
There's no
of
new
notice.
information.
I have to have notice so I can adequately prepare as a city council member to participate in a discussion.
Mr.
This
Saleh,
isn't
you
a
are not
dictatorship. This is a
Mr.
city
Shorett,
council.
you're out of order,
We are a
sir.
council.
Mr. Mayor, you're out of
We are
order.
a
Mr.
government
Shorett, you're out
that
of
needs
order.
information so we can make adequate decisions and have adequate
Mr.
discussion.
Shorett, if you would please control your anger.
This is blindsiding.
There's no
This is the
blindsiding.
definition of blindsiding.
We're going over her
We
report.
need
Say it
information
on camera.
before we can have discussion and meet. I would move to continue this meeting so that we can get the information we need for an
No, I don't second a
agendized discussion.
continuation. I move to adjourn.
Well, no, here, let me just speak if I may. I think the mayor has the prerogative to call a special meeting. To be fair to the chief of staff, I'm not, I think there are some legitimate concerns potentially here. What I am concerned about is I have not had an opportunity to prepare tonight. I don't know if my fellow council members, if I may, Council Member Shorett, I think we need an opportunity to prepare so we make decisions as a council, okay? So we need to be adequately prepared. The public needs an opportunity to understand what it is we're going to discuss tonight. I have a real problem when I have constituents calling me saying, what are you doing? What is this about? We don't know. And now we find out what this is about, which is good. I think if there's some issues with what happened in the budget and we need to have a conversation about what the projections were or what, let's do that. But let's have
If you give me 30 seconds to respond, I'd really appreciate it.
Well, I
Just
think
30 seconds to respond.
I will be happy to let you respond, but my motion still stands. We need to continue this so that the public, first and foremost, the government is the people of San Bernardino, my friend. They are the government. Not
Microphone, Henry.
Not Mr. Valdivia.
Your microphone.
Microphone, Henry.
Turn your microphone on.
The government is the people of San Bernardino. And the people must have an understanding of what is happening here tonight. Right now, they do not.
That's what the Brown Act requires.
Right. So I have a real concern as an elected official, elected to represent the government of San Bernardino, which is the people of San Bernardino. They have an absolute right to know what the concerns are that are going to be discussed here tonight. And we have an obligation as elected officials to provide information to the public, the government of San Bernardino, the people, to understand what it is we're doing here tonight. And right now, they have no clue. We just now found out. And I don't disagree. I think the mayor has brought up some valid points, and I will let you continue to bring those points up. What I say is, let's continue this. Let's get the documentation, get the information that you're going to present so we have some time to digest it, so I have some time to engage with my constituents, the government of San Bernardino, the people of San Bernardino, so that when I'm on this dais, I'm representing their concerns in terms of what it is we're going to discuss tonight.
If I may just respond briefly, Councilman Nickel, I appreciate your concerns, and I do share them with you. I will assure you, nothing we are presenting tonight is new information. We are simply going over the mid-year budget report, which the council had very limited time to review at the last council meeting, maybe 20, 30 minutes at most. The mayor discussed at the last meeting that he intended to call this workshop. It's a workshop. Let me finish, please.
He doesn't have the authority to call a workshop.
He called the workshop. A workshop is in the form of a special meeting. It's not an emergency meeting, which he has the authority to do, for us to have a discussion about the budget in a public forum, not behind closed doors.
There's nothing about mid-year budget review on here.
Exactly.
If that were stated and that were included, then I could completely go along with the discussion tonight. The fact is, the public had no idea what this was about.
Councilman,
the fact of the matter is,
I have constituents, people that have elected me to represent them, that have no idea what this is about. We just now found out it's about the mid-year.
It's about beating Andrea up.
Councilman Shorett, if I may. And through the chair, respectfully through the chair. I don't want to disrespect our mayor as chair. But if I may, I agree. I have some concerns. My constituents have concerns. I think the people of San Bernardino have concerns about our budget. We clearly have some things we need to address. My concern is the way this has been brought forward tonight is not the way we handle matters appropriately. We need to give notice so that the public has an opportunity to participate. Personally, I know people that would be here tonight if they knew this was being discussed.
Councilman, with all due respect, at the last council meeting, the mayor spent about 1 to 2 minutes discussing his intent to call this meeting and what the meeting was about, and we're happy to provide that audio and video. We couldn't have been clearer that the purpose of tonight's meeting was to go over the mid-year budget review in the form of a workshop.
Include it. Make it clear this has nothing to do with mid-year. It's a study workshop.
We're not presenting any new information.
Mr. Selly, that's not what the Brown Act requires. The Brown Act does not require that. The Brown Act is very clear. It's to give notice to the people about what is going to be discussed.
Mr. Mayor, all we're asking to do tonight is to have a conversation about the budget. There is no harm in discussing this in public and giving the information to the public.
Is there any harm? Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Nichols, recognized, sir. You'll wait your turn.
Is there any harm in continuing this? I think we need to have this discussion. Let me just be frank. We need to have this conversation. Okay, so I agree with the mayor's chief of staff, and I agree with the mayor. We need to have this conversation. What I think we have to do before we can do that is make sure that the public, the people of San Bernardino, understand what is happening here, because they have an absolute right.
Absolutely.
Aside from people sitting at this dais, what I care about are the people that are sitting out there.
That's why we call this
meeting. They
need
to understand what's going on. So that's my only concern tonight.
Okay.
I would respectfully request we continue this. Let's agendize it appropriately. Let's get the information back so we can have a conversation.
We disagree that it's improperly agendized. It's agendized appropriately. We went through the city clerk. I gave her notice on Friday.
Personally, I don't think it is.
I don't either.
That my constituents are calling me, asking me, and to the point that has been made about prior.
And you are not a city attorney or a finance director. You're a 31-year-old lawyer that got...
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order, sir.
If I may, I don't want to disparage anybody.
You'll refrain, sir, and you'll abide by our code of conduct.
What's going on here?
Mr. Shorett, you are out of order, sir.
You are out of order, sir.
Mr. Shorett, compose yourself, please. Stay on point, sir.
I'm fine. I'm on point.
You're letting your emotions and anger dictate your feelings now.
No, I've been angry all day long. I've been
Well,
angry since
Mr. Shorett,
2019.
Mr. Shorett, stay on point, sir.
Mr.
We're trying to conduct a meeting here on budget workshop. It was agendized. It was noticed. I made my intentions public.
got two motions.
So, Mr. Shorett, you are out of order. Mr. Shorett, you will silence yourself, and you will abide by the code of conduct, sir.
Or what?
I will censure you. We'll call for
We
censure.
don't have a process.
Well, we'll start one.
And we need one.
Okay.
And you don't make it. The council makes it.
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order. Mr. Shorett, you're not recognized. I ask that you raise your hand or ask the chair, ask the chair, sir, for permission to speak. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. You know, I appreciate everything that's going on. Well, I really don't appreciate it, but, this is not something that I signed up for. But, this is a business meeting, and I believe that at this point, I don't think that we would even be able to have meaningful conversation. Everybody is alarmed, everybody's agitated, everybody's upset, and I did get a few questions about the agenda because it was very brief. I did myself expect to get some backup along with the agenda when I saw the 2 pages. So I want to agree with some of my colleagues right now that we can continue this, and we can continue this because I don't think that we will have any healthy dialogue tonight based on how people are feeling. And I just want all of our council members to have a say-so in this meeting. It's about the city. It's about us representing all parts of the city. And at this point, I don't think that all parts of the city will be represented tonight. Thank you.
I don't, Mr. Mayor, I think you should seek, I don't know if the council has authority to adjourn, to vote to adjourn, do they?
Move to adjourn.
Yes,
Or to
they do.
continue?
So I would like to put a substitute motion on the floor to continue this meeting and allow time so that we can, Mayor, how long would it take us to get some backup material? It sounds to me like we just need the mid-year. It's clear now. Now I can go back to my constituents and let them know what this meeting's about.
There's two things that you asked, Mr. Nickel. A date as to when this can be put forward with all the backup material. We do have backup material. It's
We have a
present.
PowerPoint presentation.
We have a
which is-
PowerPoint presentation.
I'm going to present it if you'd give me an opportunity, and the public is watching on TV,
So-
and they'll be able to see it.
The public can't participate from the television, sir.
It's not a backup.
Okay, so the information is available to the public. There is a provision to provide all of that, Ms. City Clerk. All of the information can be copied, anything provided. Mr. Shorett, if you would please, let me speak.
Because it's not available to the public.
If there is a provision and a caveat within the Brown Act that if there's copies available at a meeting, the copies can be provided with the proviso that they're provided through the city clerk's office. We have the information here. We'll make it a public document. There's no secrets here. This is a big distraction on what we need to talk about. The issues of our budget are, there's a lot of concerns here, and we will get to the bottom of it. So are there discussion points on the motion made by Mr. Nickel?
I'd like to make a comment. Councilman Shorett made pretty clear his stance that since December, since Inauguration Day, that he doesn't like what's going on. He doesn't like what's going on because he doesn't like who's in the seat. I would say put aside that anger, put aside that partisanship, and please, let's conduct the city's business. This is a review of the budget that we reviewed initially 2 council meetings ago. All this information has been public since then. We've had members of the public point exactly to what we're going to be discussing right now.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They all said that this was crazy. And
They have all in public.
I'm not going to sit here and listen to this.
They have all.
Do more.
Okay, well then you need to be quiet, Mr. Shorett. You're out of order.
No, I'm not going to.
You're out of order, sir. You are out of order, Mr. Shorett. Mr. Shorett, you are out of order.
Well,
The chair does not
that's why
recognize
we
you,
asked
sir.
that the
Mr.
finance
Sanchez.
director. That's why we asked that the finance director attend.
We asked for it.
Mr. Shorett, you are
That's why
out of order.
We asked for it.
Mr. Shorett, you are out of order, sir.
You don't think
Mr.
that in a
Sanchez,
review?
please
You don't think
continue.
that in a review of the finances are
Mr. Shorett, you are out of order, sir. Mr. Shorett, you are out of order, sir. You will conduct yourself in decorum, sir. Mr. Sanchez, please continue.
Fred, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm embarrassed.
Fine.
I'm embarrassed.
I've been here 10 years and I don't have a problem. I'm tired of this.
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order.
This is embarrassing.
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order, sir.
This is embarrassing.
Well, I'm sorry.
I'd like to ask the city manager a question. How many? I know that the finance director is here on a limited basis. How I know CalPERS limits her hours. When she started here, how many hours are allocated to her working here in this position?
I don't know exactly how many hours because I wasn't prepared.
I know it's in the hundreds. I know it's in the hundreds.
I didn't finish. CalPERS requires or precludes people from working more than 960 hours, but that's for all service. I don't know how much she may have worked for another community before she came here. I'd have to check that. With that said, though, the reason why she's not here is because we need to complete 3 major projects. I don't want her to run out of hours and have to bring in another interim in to serve in that capacity until we can get the finance director position filled. And without more information, we've publicly provided these to you. I would take exception to the no notice of it because remember, we do provide your agendas on the Friday prior to the Wednesday meeting, and we're always available to answer questions. I emailed all of you recently and encouraged you to meet with me if you had questions about this. I did meet with the mayor's chief of staff, and actually Rita assisted in that as well. So we're available to answer any questions. This is all public information, but I was not going to ask the staff to be here when I'm concerned about those hours, but I also did not want to blindside the staff. I wasn't aware of what the true purpose was. I'm prepared to address what we've already presented. I'm certainly prepared to speak on the process for the 1920 period, but I was not going to put the staff in the position of blindsiding them. The staff reports to me. I am the city manager. I am responsible for the budget and the finance department. I don't blindside my staff. I think blindsiding people does not encourage them to perform to the best of their abilities. It certainly doesn't build the culture of trust that we're working to build within the organization.
So,
if I may respond to her comment that we met.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and finish real quick. So,
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order, sir.
She doesn't have enough time to be here, but you don't know how many hours she has left to work in this capacity for our city. So
I'm not going to have her blindsided, and we have mapped out her hours so that she can complete those tasks, but there are certainly some things that just have to be completed.
So how many hours does she have available?
I don't remember. I'm not going to put my staff, bottom line, not going to put my staff in the position of being blindsided, and I'm perfectly capable of answering these questions.
So it's not clear enough here when it says that we're going to do a budget study workshop that we will be discussing the city's finances?
I am prepared.
Please.
I am prepared to address anything. We've been through these numbers now a couple of times at the March 6th meeting, the March 20th meeting. I'm prepared to answer any questions you have about the mid-year financial report, and I'm perfectly capable of answering any questions about the budget going forward. So not going to have my staff blindsided. I'm not going to do it. I'm their employer. We don't treat each other that way. We're trying to build a culture of trust and respect. It instills commitment to the organization and to the community. And I can answer any questions that you have.
Councilman, if I may respond to the comment that of blindsiding and meeting with her. I had one meeting with the city manager and the finance director. I brought up many of the issues I'm going to go over tonight. Nobody's being blindsided. These are important questions about the city's finances. This is a city fresh out of bankruptcy, and we have to ensure that this city does not go back into bankruptcy. So when the mayor's office has tough questions for the city manager, we expect answers. To be frank with you, we didn't get answers at that meeting. The finance director has been instructed, excuse me, I am speaking. The finance director was instructed to not communicate with us. She has prevented the finance director from answering our questions. This is an outrage. We have asked, excuse me.
Absolute outrage.
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order, sir. Mr. Shorett.
I'd love to excuse you.
Mr. Shorett, you're out of order. Mr. Saley, please continue.
I'd love to excuse you. We have asked for backup information repeatedly. They have not been provided to us. So we called this meeting to have a public conversation and to get answers publicly. But tonight, the city manager has instructed the finance director to not be here
to prevent you guys from being able to get the answers that you need.
That is
You
not
This is
overstepped
a
your boundaries
disservice.
trying to direct her to be here, and that is not your authority, sir. That is
directed
not
no
your
one.
authority.
And I'm
And
sorry,
you're
that
not
is-
the city attorney, and you're not the finance
Mr. Shorett,
director, and
you're
you're
out of
not
order,
the city
sir.
manager.
Mr. Shorett,
And
your
you ought to
motions
go
that
back
Fred
and sit
Shorett
down
is
where you
displaying-
belong.
Mr. Shorett,
When trying to
the
conduct-
chair will recognize Mr. Sanchez on his comments remaining. You're out of order,
when
sir.
was a Saley elected mayor
Mr.
so you can
Shorett,
travel to
Mr.
China
Shorett,
and to,
you're out
and
of
to
order,
Sacramento
sir.
and not be
Mr.
here?
Shorett, you are well.
So we're
frankly,
we're
you're
conducting-
outrageous, Fred. But
Yeah, I am.
yeah, you're acting really silly. But it's all on display, Mr. Sanchez.
Fine.
Fred. So the type of emotion you're displaying here, is there something else wrong? Is there something else wrong?
There sure is.
What is it? Because
This guy is mayor, and you, as a council member, just following his lead.
So it has nothing to do with the council members trying to conduct the business of reviewing the city's finances.
That is just the phoniest line. That
So
is
it's
the
not that.
phoniest line I've
So this
ever
is-
heard.
this is a personal-
not conducting business. This is a public flogging of the city manager.
Should we
That's
not,
what it
Mr.
is.
Sanchez,
should we not be
please, if
reviewing
you'd
the
address the
city's
council,
finances?
sir.
We should, in an appropriate form, and this is not it.
So I think what we're dealing with here is a personal vendetta that
It is not.
I think we
If
are
this man
deviating.
deserved the
Mr.
respect-
Shorett.
so regardless of what we would be discussing here, you'd be
Point of
displaying
order,
the same
please.
No,
emotions.
I
Point
would
of-
not.
point
because-
of order.
Because it would be done appropriately.
Point of order.
The mayor's office is not conducting themselves
Mr. Shorett,
appropriately
Mr.
according to the
Shorett,
new
you're out of
charter.
order, sir.
Point of
Period.
order.
Mr. Shorett,
Point of
you're in
order.
violation
And
of
when
the
they
code
want
of
to start
conduct, sir.
conducting themselves as the
Mr.
charter
Shorett.
calls
Point
and
of
start
order.
understanding
Point of
Mr.
order.
Mulvihill, you're out of order. Please
Point of order.
refrain from yelling, Mr. Mulvihill. The chair recognizes Mr. Nickel.
Yeah, point of order. I just, we need to maintain decorum here. Please, please respect the chair, and please respect the decorum that's necessary as being recognized. I would like to hear the rest of Mr. Sanchez's comments, but I would respectfully ask that we remain consistent with the matter at hand, and that we not deviate into other discussions.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Mr. Sanchez, if you'd address the council, please. Sir.
Yeah, I've concluded my comments.
Thank you. Ms. Ibarra, comments?
I have a question about code of conduct. If we do not follow the code of conduct, is there a fine that the council members get fined, or nothing?
The city currently does not have a censure policy. One of the things that you asked, I think, at the last meeting or the meeting before, was to bring back a censure policy. And so the city attorney's office, I think Sonia and Gary have been working on that. And I apologize, Gary, I'm not sure if you have a sense
No,
of when-
that's correct. I don't have a specific yet, but given the council's request at former meetings that we come up with a censure policy, Sonia, my chief assistant or chief assistant city attorney, has looked at some models from various cities, and our current plan, although we haven't put it on an agenda yet, is to bring forward some options of some of those models that we think include best practices regarding censorship, and let council choose among those if they will, and if not, to bring back further, or to draft our own if council so requests.
Ms. Ibarra?
Okay, thank you. I too got a lot of questions. People were asking me, and I said I have as much information as you have. I like the motion if we could continue. Unfortunately, I will not be in town the next 2 days. I have a training to go to. So if this can be maybe sometime next week after we fully read into all the information. I know at the last meeting when we went over the I'm not sure if the capital improvement project and the mid-year budget was actually shared online with the agenda, that we received documentation at the podium, at the dais. So if we do continue it, that we include all the information that we're getting right now, including I know you mentioned you were going to go over the capital improvement projects, the mid-year review budget.
I did in response to your question, and we can distribute these to you today. We have copies of the mid-year financial review that was online and was in your agenda packet, but I did bring copies of that for you today. That was presented at the March 6th council meeting, and then I did also bring copies of the CIP discussion from the March 20th. This is also the agenda report from that meeting, and I have copies for you in case it would assist you. The other thing that I think would be helpful if we continue this item, or if you do vote to do that, that we also have the questions that Mr. Saley's indicated that they wanted answered, so I can make sure that we're prepared on those items.
And if I may, I'd like to see those questions too, because I'll be honest. I have some questions too.
If you would just,
I have some serious questions.
Let us present the information, you'll have it, and then you can
And
decide.
it needs to be agendized, though.
It is agendized. We disagree that it's not agendized.
Here's the issue, Mr. Saley, and I don't disagree with you in that I have some concerns about our budget too. Okay, so let's just get that out there. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to get a sense of what questions you have. That way, when I come here the next time, I can. I'm not repeating to it, or I'm adding to. And the mayor, yes, and I think there are legitimate questions here. Don't get me wrong. I think there's legitimate questions. We have a serious revenue problem in the city, so I get it. We have to have conversations about revenue generation. So I'm on board. My concern is I want to make sure I get feedback from the constituents, because ultimately I represent people that live in San Bernardino, the residents. They have questions too, and I want to make sure if that's what we were going to do tonight, which I fully support, I want to make sure I'm adequately prepared and that I can get the feedback from my constituents so we can have a conversation in addition to the questions you have, which I think you probably have some legitimate ones. So all I'm asking, let's continue this. If I can get those questions, if there's any objection to that, I'm fine with that. But I'd be kind of interested, because I may want to add to some of that next time too.
Thank you, Mr. Nichol.
And by the way, we wouldn't object to that. What I would ask is, would you let me present, and then let's continue the meeting and ask the questions at a later meeting. But I don't think there's any harm in letting it. I have a 10-minute presentation.
Could we include the presentation as the backup so that my constituents have a chance to comment?
We can do both, but what is the harm? People are watching on TV right now. What is the harm in presenting the information, and then let's come back and do the questions?
Well, because I think we can do that in an agendized item and come back and get the presentation and then have a conversation. Yeah. I think just having a presentation then adjourning doesn't really make a lot of sense tonight. I think the public has a right to know what it is we're going to discuss, have some background, and then we'll come back and let's have a conversation.
Mr. Nichol, thank you. Ms. Ibarra, she has, yes, Ms. Ibarra, please continue.
So right now, from what I got, I'm missing the PowerPoint presentations that were presented to us that were not included. So if that could be a part of this packet for our constituents to look at home. Also, the other item, before I got interrupted, sorry. Can you come back to me, Mayor?
Thank you.
Mr.
Shorett, do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, actually, what I'll add is probably kind of. I will. I don't think people think I need one.
Well, that's all right. Well,
but I'll use it for the sake of the public.
Go ahead, Fred.
You know, I've said a lot of what I was thinking about all day today, and I know what's going on here. And this is not a constructive meeting. This is just not a constructive meeting. This is to use a term that's been used a lot, it's a witch hunt. And it is a public flogging of a very competent and hardworking city manager that is being pulled in 10 directions since December 19th. Because people can't adhere to the new charter. I said it, I think, at the last meeting. This mayor and his chief of staff absolutely refuse to adhere to the charter and understand their roles in this new position. And I wrote some things here. I typed some things out today as I was thinking about it. One is a special meeting. We're having a special meeting, and this has been overused. We haven't had special meetings this many in my 10-year tenure. 10-year tenure. And we've had 5 in the last 3 months, and they're all kind of blindsiding. We cannot plan, I can't plan my schedule because of these special meetings. Who knows? What if I had been out of town? I was out of town over the weekend through Monday night. What if this had been scheduled for Monday night? I wouldn't have been here. Special meetings should be called when there's a special reason, something that can't be, that is in connection with an emergency, heaven forbid a shooting as we had on December 2nd a few years ago, those types of issues, earthquakes, disasters. That's what a special meeting is for. Otherwise, we should be open. These are meant for items that cannot wait or require focused discussion. That's what I'm talking about. No backup for this meeting provided so we could not prepare for the discussion, and our public has no backup. Stop. I don't need you to interrupt me.
Did you not get the mid-year budget review? That's
not what this agenda is about, Mr.
If you're going to
Asaley.
disparage me publicly, I will respond, Mr. Shorett.
This is not.
I take offense to your allegations against me and the mayor's office. We take the charter seriously, and we take our responsibility to the public.
That's my opinion.
Seriously.
Just like you said, my opinion is that I've got the floor, sir.
Please refrain from publicly disparaging people if you don't
I'm
want
not
them to
disparaging
respond.
you. I'm saying that I don't believe you're following
Mr.
the charter.
Shorett,
That's
your time
my
is
opinion.
up. Mr. Nickel will be
And I
recognized.
think
Mr.
there's
Nickel,
other people that will back me up and believe the same thing.
Mr. Nickel, go ahead.
What happened?
Your time is up. Yeah,
Well, that's another thing that.
Mayor,
Mr. City Attorney, I ask that you please take note.
Did I take note?
Duly noted.
Note taken.
This is unacceptable behavior by our professionals. Mr. Nickel, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think I've said my piece. I just think the public has. I think the public deserves. The public deserves a council and a staff that, if I may, I will wait until the conversation is over. First of all, I want to say this. I respect the fact that everybody at this dais, sitting here at this table, has been elected. You've been elected by the people of San Bernardino. I respect that, okay? I respect that. And I respect the fact that the people of San Bernardino are the people who ultimately are the government of San Bernardino. So I will, and I respect the fact that we do have serious budget issues, okay? I'm not here to cast blame. I'm here to fix what needs to be fixed. And I think that really needs to be our focus. We have challenges. I mean, we would be completely remiss if we did not acknowledge the fact that the city of San Bernardino has serious challenges. And I think it's incumbent upon us, if I may, as a city council, as elected officials, not to contribute to those challenges, but to be part of helping fix those challenges. So there's a lot of emotion here tonight. I understand that. I would just respectfully ask, let's put personal differences aside. Let's focus on the people's business. Let's do what we need to do as elected officials of the city of San Bernardino. Let's get our budget in order. We don't have any time to waste. So I'm looking forward to the conversation, Mr. Asaley. I'm sure you're doing your due diligence. I look forward to your comments at the next meeting, and I look forward to us having a constructive conversation, working together, bridging our personal differences, actually setting them aside when we come to this dais, and working for the people who've elected us to do a very difficult job, but a job that we need to do and that we will do. Thank you.
I'd like to. Mayor Pro Tem, if you would. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. So I just want to say that we're a city that's on the move. Work needs to be done. We may have to call special meetings. We may have to have more meetings than 2 a month, because that may be what's required. So I'm okay with that. But my position still stands that we need to have a meeting where the public can know what's going on and be involved. And I get everything that you're saying. You know, it was already publicized. It was, you know, a couple of meetings ago, but it should have been attached to this meeting. The same information that was attached to the previous meeting should have been attached here. So that way we wouldn't have, the public wouldn't be in an uproar. So I just say again, it still stands that this is a business meeting, and I think because there are emotions involved, that this would not be a productive meeting tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Richard. I also would encourage, so that we just don't pick this particular issue. There have been other council members who have asked for that the meeting presentation PowerPoints be made available public, that Ms. City Manager, you would do your very best to agendize these items in full. that there be no surprises. I mean, if we're going to talk candidly and frankly about it, many of these council members get staff items and PowerPoints the day of. So what say you on your reaction to what Mayor Pro Tem says, what the council has said, and how will you correct that?
Yes, we allow the departments to turn their agenda items in sooner because obviously we need to publish the agenda. Oh, sorry, I'm still getting over my cold too. But we do give a deadline to the departments so that we can make sure that it's in the published agenda. We will just ask them to, for now on, we usually give them up to the day of the meeting to finish their PowerPoints. We will ask them to have their PowerPoints with the agenda items so that we're receiving not only the agenda item, but the PowerPoint, and that way we can just include all of them in the packet.
There might be even so far as the opportunity for the council to agendize the matter and create a resolution that we will not entertain or hear any agenda item if it doesn't. So let's satisfy the public's quest for curiosity. Let's satisfy the compliance of the Brown Act, and let's be in full compliance with transparency measures. I'd encourage this council to agendize a matter so that everything, so we can have a discussion on this particular issue of flyers or presentations or anything that arrives on our desk. Frankly, it shouldn't even arrive on our desk. It should be supplemental to what we already received in the agenda packet, if that is the demands of the public and some of our council members. So I just want to encourage our council members to think about that. Mr. Sanchez.
Yes, I think there's been many cases in council meetings where we've had the PowerPoint presentation made by staff. We usually get a hard copy minutes, if not moments, before the PowerPoint presentation is going to be presented to the council. So I would recommend. I mean, this council is not making any decisions today. Am I correct? Is this council making any decisions today? I would like. So what I would say is that there is no harm in hearing the presentation. Of course, making no decisions, and then I guess scheduling another special meeting with the proper documentation so that the public is fully aware of what we're discussing. But I don't see any harm in hearing the presentation.
The harm is that the public has not an opportunity to participate, which is the requirement. That's why they receive notice of what this discussion is going to be about. So if they want to be heard, they have an opportunity to be heard. That's the harm.
There are plenty of presentations that have been made at council meetings where the PowerPoint isn't made available to the public, and we receive copies minutes before, if not moments before, the presentation is made by staff. I don't see there being any delineation between what we're doing now and what was been done in the past by our staff.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Actually, I have to correct that. We don't do PowerPoint presentations in lieu of a staff report. We sometimes will do a presentation to try to supplement the staff report or to make it easier for the audience to follow along with the report just in case they haven't read the agenda items. But we do include, other than oral presentations where I'm simply advising you on something that's more routine in nature, or something like, in fact, the only oral report that I can think of that I've done in even the recent past has been the discussion about the mayor's request to move this meeting to the IVDA, and that was only because we had had so many discussions prior to that related to the facility options. So we are only allowing staff members to do PowerPoints when it is a supplement to the written report that you've previously received.
Are those reports, are the presentation, the PowerPoints, is there a practice to include that for the public in the noticing on Thursday when this agenda item is released?
That's why I made a note that you would like to have those done, and we'll just have the directors turn their PowerPoints in for now on with their agenda items so that it becomes a part of the public agenda like everything.
And if she's going to respond, I'd like the opportunity to respond as well. Staff report usually provide new information to the council, would either have a recommendation on to receive and file or to take direction. No such information is being provided tonight. And in fact, what I find most offensive about this is that we've asked for this meeting over a week ago. The city manager did not do her due diligence in agendizing the mid-year, in attaching the mid-year budget report. That's frankly.
What did I tell you? This is a public flogging of the city manager.
She never asked us for backup material
about it.
She did not ask us for backup material. She did not ask us. to add anything. So had anyone asked us, we've been happy to tell them exactly what we intended to discuss. We did tell the public at the last meeting, and we would have been happy to attach the last
law,
report. Excuse me.
The law, I'd like to respond. The law in the state of California requests that you provide information sufficient to the public. That's where you did not provide that information.
It's a discussion. It's a workshop.
It's not just guessing what this is about. It's telling them what it's about and providing them information, which
Mr.
did not happen.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
That's your
Mr.
opinion.
Mulvihill.
Thank you. Pardon me. I finally get my turn. The people deserve better than this, what they've seen tonight. The city has a lot of problems that we need to address. I think Mr. Ojeda gave a pretty good array of them: crime, homelessness, trash, potholes. I'm looking at the municipal code, 2.58.040, mayor's conduct. The mayor will build a consensus within the city council to create and implement a shared vision. That's not happening. That's not happening. And it did happen up until December 19th. Now, am I accusing? Well, that's when Mayor Valdivia took over. Since December 19th, we have not had a consensus. Before that time, with Mayor Davis, we had consensus. We were moving ahead. Now we're just stuck. A wrench was thrown into it. We've had difficult issues we need to address. We need to come together. The mayor has not done his job as mandated by the municipal code. And yes, I will blame the mayor, as guilty as charged, not building consensus. 2.58.040. Thank you. And I call the question.
Mayor, for me.
Ms. Ibarra, is there time remaining for Ms. Ibarra? Please.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Ibarra?
So my other point I wanted to mention, I blanked out earlier. The special meetings, we have had multiple special meetings since I started coming to the council meetings in 2015 as a constituent myself. If people can recall, a lot of the special meetings we ever had since I started getting involved and coming to council meetings were held during the day while all of us were at work. I will point one of them was when our council, there was 4 council members and they voted to annex our city fire. So that was held at 10 a.m. on a Friday after it went through council. But besides that, I would encourage everybody to count how many special meetings we've had since 2015. You'll see there was a lot of special meetings. The other thing is that special meetings like these do require our full attention, and please do not put it with the full agenda of 27 items. If it's on a standalone workshop, I would love to see that. And that, I yield my time.
Thank you, Ms. Ibarra. At this time, Ms. City Manager, I have a final question. The temperament of our council tonight suggests that we should probably agendize this for a different day, and that's fine. I'm amenable to that. I'd request that you'd agendize this at the April 3rd. Is that right?
Next regular meeting is
Very
April
good.
3rd.
As a staff report, if there are no objections from the council, let's hear this out April 3rd on staff report.
And you want me to prepare the agenda item, get the information from Mr. Asaley, the PowerPoint, and questions?
We'll attach all of this, but Mr.
Yes, and then
Mr. Asaley will, sure, absolutely. We can have a good discussion then, and that if you're in agreement.
Yes, I will.
Okay, very good.
And then I think I forgot one other thing that someone asked, and I just counted, and I don't have enough, but I will get it to you. But whomever asked me, someone had asked about the plan of adjustment.
Very good, that's
So,
fine.
If
It's
someone
public
wants
record.
it, I
Thank
do
you.
have copies of it.
Very good.
Yeah.
We will call for adjournment. We appreciate your presence here tonight, and we thank you. The meeting is adjourned.